Tonight's stories come from the land of the midnight sun, Norway. If you haven't heard the first part of this fairy tale series, the link is in the video description, along with a time-stamped list of the individual stories. And if you want to know when more stories are released, make sure to subscribe. Now get comfortable, relax, and prepare to sleep a wink. The Doll in the Grass. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 12 sons. When they were grown up, he told them they must go out into the world and find themselves wives who must all be able to spin and weave and make a shirt in one day, else he would not have them for daughters-in-law. He gave each of his sons a horse and a new suit of armor, and so they set out in the world to look for wives. When they had traveled a bit on the way, they said they would not take Ashiepattle with them, for he was good for nothing. Ashiepattle must stop behind. There was no help for it. He did not know what he should do or which way he should turn. He became so sad that he got off the horse and sat down on the grass and began to cry. When he had sat a while, one of the tussocks among the grass began to move, and out of it came a small white figure. As it came nearer, Ashiepattle saw that it was a beautiful little girl, but she was so tiny, so very, very tiny. She went up to him and asked him if he would come below and pay a visit to the doll in the grass. Yes, that he would, and so he did. When he came down below, the doll in the grass was sitting in a chair dressed very finely and looking still more beautiful. She asked Ashiepattle where he was going and what was his errand. He told her they were 12 brothers, and that the king had given them each a horse and a suit of armor, and told them to go out in the world and find themselves wives. But they must all be able to spin and weave and make a shirt in a day. If you can do that and will become my wife, I will not travel any further, said Ashiepattle to the doll in the grass. Yes, that she would, and she set to work at once to get the shirt spun, woven, and made. But it was so tiny, so very, very tiny, no bigger than so. Ashiepattle then returned home, taking the shirt with him, but when he brought it out, he felt very shy because it was so small. But the king said he could have her for all that, and you can imagine how happy and joyful Ashiepattle became. The road did not seem long to him as he set out to fetch his little sweetheart. When he came to the doll in the grass, he wanted her to sit with him on his horse, but no, that she wouldn't. She said she would sit and drive in a silver spoon, and that she had 2 small white horses which would draw her. So they set out, he on his horse, and she in the silver spoon, and the horses which drew her were 2 small white mice. Ashiepattle always kept to one side of the road, for he was so afraid he should ride over her. She was so very, very tiny. When they had traveled a bit on the way, they came to a large lake. There, Ashiepattle's horse took fright and shied over to the other side of the road and upset the spoon so that the doll in the grass fell into the water. Ashiepattle became very sad, for he did not know how he should get her out again. But after a while, a merman brought her up, but now she had become just as big as any other grown-up being and was much more beautiful than she was before. So he placed her in front of him on the horse and rode home. When Ashiepattle got there, all his brothers had also returned, each with a sweetheart, but they were so ugly and ill-favored and bad-tempered that they had come to blows with their sweethearts on their way home. On their heads they had hats which were painted with tar and soot, and this had run from their hats down their faces, so that they were still uglier and more ill-favored to behold. When the brothers saw Ashiepattle's sweetheart, they all became envious of him. But the king was so pleased with Ashiepattle and his sweetheart that he drove all the others away, and so Ashiepattle was married to the doll in the grass. And afterward they lived happy and comfortable for a long, long time. And if they are not dead, they must be still alive. Little Fred and his fiddle. Once upon a time, there was a cottager who had an only son, and this lad was rather weak and always ailing, so he was not able to go out for work. His name was Fred, but being rather small for his age, he was generally called Little Fred. At home, there wasn't much to bite or to munch either, so his father went about the parish to get a place for him as a cowboy or an errand boy. But nobody wanted a lad until he came to the bailiff of the parish. He would take him as he had just turned away his errand boy, and there was no one who cared to go to him because everyone said he was a stingy old miser. Something is better than nothing, thought the father. In any case, he would get his food, for that was all he was going to have from the bailiff. There wasn't a word said about clothes or wages. But when the lad had been there 3 years, he wanted to leave, and so the bailiff paid him his wages for the time he had been with him. He was to have a penny a year. It couldn't very well be less, said the bailiff, so he paid the lad 3 pennies altogether. Little Fred, however, thought it was a lot of money because he had never owned so much before, but he asked if he wasn't going to have some more for all that. "You have got more than you ought to have," said the bailiff. "Shan't I have anything for clothes then?" said little Fred. "Those I had on when I came here are now all in rags, and I haven't had any new ones from you. I have only rags and tatters flapping and dangling about me," said he. "When you have got what we agreed upon, and the 3 pennies besides, I have nothing more to do with you," said the bailiff. But he might go out into the kitchen and get a little food in his knapsack, and then he started off along the road to town to buy clothes. He was both merry and glad, because he had never seen a penny before, and he couldn't help feeling in his pocket now and then to see if they were all 3 there. So when he had gone far, and further than far, he came to a narrow valley with high mountains on all sides, so he didn't know which way to get on, and he began to wonder what there could be on the other side of the mountains, and how he should get over them. But get over them he must, and so he started. He wasn't very strong and had to rest now and then, and he would then count over his money to see how much he had. When he got to the top of the mountain, he found there was nothing but a great big moor. There he sat down and was just going to see if he had his pennies all right when a beggar came up to him before he knew a thing about it. But the beggar was so tall and big that the lad began to scream when he really saw what a big and long fellow he was. "Don't be afraid of me," said the beggar. "I shan't hurt you. I only beg for a penny in heaven's name." "God help me," said the lad. "I have only 3 pennies, and I was just going to town to buy some clothes with them." "It is worse with me than with you," said the beggar. "I haven't got a penny, and I am still more ragged than you." "Well, I suppose you must have it then," said the lad. When he had walked on a bit, he became tired and sat down to take another rest. When he looked up, there was a beggar again, but this one was much bigger and uglier than the first, and when the lad saw how big and ugly he was, he began to scream. "Don't be afraid of me. I shan't hurt you. I only beg for a penny in heaven's name," said the beggar. "Well, God help me," said the lad. "As true as I am here, I have only got 2 pennies, and I was just going to town to buy some clothes with them. If only I had met you sooner, It is worse with me than with you," said the beggar. "I haven't got a penny, and I have a much bigger body and less clothes." "Well, I suppose you must have it then," said the lad. When he got a bit further, he became tired and sat down to rest. But he had no sooner sat down than another beggar came to him, and he was so tall and big and ugly that when the lad was going to look up at him, he had to look up to the sky, and then he could really see what a very big, ugly, ragged fellow he was, and the lad began screaming and shouting. "Don't you be afraid of me, my lad," said the beggar. "I shan't hurt you, for I am only a poor beggar who begs a penny in heaven's name." "Well, God help me," said the lad. "As true as I am here, I have only 1 penny left, and I was just going to town to buy some clothes with it. If I had only met you sooner, Well, I haven't got a penny, and I have a bigger body and less clothes, so it is worse with me than with you," said the beggar. "Well, I suppose you must have the penny then," said little Fred. There was no help for it. Now they had all had 1 each, and he had none. "Now, since you have such a good heart and have given away all you had," said the beggar, "I will give you a wish for each penny." It was the same beggar who had got all the 3 pennies. He had only changed each time so that the lad should not know him again. "I have always been wishing to hear the fiddle playing and see people so merry and happy that they had to dance," said the lad. "So if I may wish what I like, I wish I had such a fiddle as would make everything that is alive dance to its tune." "That you may have," said the beggar, "but it is a poor wish. You must wish something better for the other pennies." "I have always been fond of hunting and shooting," said little Fred. "So if I may wish what I like, I wish I had a gun that would hit everything I aim at, if it were ever so far off." "That you may have," said the beggar, "but it is a poor wish. You must wish something better for the last penny." "I have always liked to be in company with kind and good people," said little Fred. "So if I may wish what I like, I wish that no one can refuse me the first thing I ask." "That wasn't such a bad wish," said the beggar, and strolled off among the hills till the lad couldn't see him any more. So the lad lay down to sleep, and the next day he came down from the mountains with his fiddle and his gun. First he went to the storekeeper and asked for clothes, and at one farm he asked for a horse, and at another for a sledge, and at one place he asked for a fur coat, and no one could say no to him. Even the most stingy people had to give him what he asked for. At last he traveled through the parish like a fine gentleman, with his horse and sledge. When he had gone some distance, he met the bailiff he had served. "Good day, master," said little Fred, as he stopped and took off his cap. "Good day," said the bailiff. "Have I been your master?" "Yes. Don't you recollect that I served 3 years with you for 3 pennies?" said little Fred. "Dear me," said the bailiff, "how you have got on! How is it you have become such a grand fellow?" "Ah, you think so, do you?" said the youngster. "And you seem to be so merry that you must have a fiddle with you as well," said the bailiff. "Yes, I always like to see people dance," said the lad. "But the finest thing I have is this gun of mine. It hits everything I aim at, if it is ever so far off. Do you see that magpie in the fir tree yonder? What will you wager I don't hit it from where we are now standing?" The bailiff would willingly have staked both his horse and farm and $100 beside that he couldn't hit it. But as it was, he would stake all the money he had in his pocket and wouldn't mind fetching the magpie when it fell down, because he never believed it was possible a gun could reach so far. Off went the gun, and down fell the magpie right in the middle of a lot of brambles. The bailiff ran right in among the brambles after the magpie, picked it up, and showed it to the lad. But just at that moment, little Fred took his fiddle out and began playing, and the bailiff began to dance, and danced away while the thorns were tearing his clothes. But the lad went on playing, and the bailiff danced and cried and begged for himself till the rags flew about him until he had scarcely a thread to his back. "Well now, I think you are almost as ragged as I was when I left your service," said the lad, "so now you may go." But first the bailiff had to pay the wager he had lost, that the boy couldn't hit the magpie. When the lad came to town, he went into an inn and began playing, and all who came there had to dance. And he lived on merrily and well, for he had no cares, since no one could say no to him when he asked for anything. But just as they were in the middle of the fun, the watchman came to take the lad up before the magistrate, for the bailiff had complained about him and charged him with having waylaid and robbed him and nearly taken his life. And now the lad was going to be hanged. There was no help for it. But little Fred had the means of getting out of all trouble, and that was the fiddle. He began to play on it, and then you should have seen how the watchmen danced away till they fell down and gasped for breath. So they sent soldiers and the guard, but it fared no better with them than the watchmen. When little Fred took out his fiddle, they had to dance as long as he was able to play on it, but they were done for long before he was tired. At last they came unawares upon him and took him while he was asleep at night, and when he was brought up, he was sentenced to be hanged at once, and away they all went to the gallows. There was such a crowd of people to see this wonderful lad, and the bailiff was there too. He was so pleased, because he was to get amends both for his money and his skin, and see the lad hanged into the bargain. But it took a long time before they came to the gallows, because little Fred was always weak on his legs, and now he made himself still worse. He had brought with him his fiddle and his gun, as they could not get him to part with them, and when he came to the gallows and was going to mount the ladder, he halted and rested himself on each step. When he got to the top of the ladder, he sat down and asked if they would not grant him one thing. He had such a wish to play a tune, just a little bit of a tune, on his fiddle before he was hanged. Well, they said, it were both sin and shame to deny him that. For you see, they could not say no to what he asked for. But the bailiff asked in heaven's name that they would not let him touch a string, or else there would not be much left of any of them. If the lad was to play, the bailiff wanted to be tied up to a birch tree that stood there. But little Fred was not long about getting out his fiddle and playing on it, and then all that were there began dancing, both those that went on 2 legs and those that went on 4, both the deacon and the parson, the judge and the sheriff, men and women, dogs and swine. They danced and screamed, the one louder than the other. Some danced till they dropped down dead, some danced till they fell down in fits, All had a terrible time of it, but worst of all, the poor bailiff, who was tied up to the birch tree and was dancing away till he scraped great bits of skin off his back. There was no one who thought of doing anything to little Fred after that, and they let him go with his gun and his fiddle where he liked. He lived happy all his days, for there was no one who could say no to the first thing he asked for. Gudbrand on the hillside. There was once upon a time a man whose name was Gudbrand. He had a farm which lay far away, up on the side of a hill, and therefore they called him Gudbrand on the hillside. He and his wife lived so happily together and agreed so well that whatever the man did, the wife thought it so well done that no one could do it better. No matter what he did, she thought it was always the right thing. They lived on their own farm and had $100 at the bottom of their chest and 2 cows in their cowshed. One day, the woman said to Gudbrand, "I think we ought to go to town with one of the cows and sell it, so that we may have some ready money by us. We are pretty well off, and ought to have a few shillings in our pocket like other people. The $100 in the chest we mustn't touch, but I can't see what we want with more than 1 cow, and it will be much better for us, and I shall have only 1 to look after instead of the 2 I have now to mind and feed." Yes, Gudbrand thought, that was well and sensibly spoken. He took the cow at once and went to town to sell it. But when he got there, no one would buy the cow. "Ah well," thought Gudbrand, "I may as well take the cow home again. I know I have both stall and food for it, and the way home is no longer than it was here." So he strolled homeward again with the cow. When he had got a bit on the way, he met a man who had a horse to sell, and Gudbrand thought it was better to have a horse than a cow, and so he changed the cow for the horse. When he had gone a bit further, he met a man who was driving a fat pig before him, and then he thought it would be better to have a fat pig than a horse, and so he changed with the man. He now went a bit further, and then he met a man with a goat, and so he thought it was surely better to have a goat than a pig, and changed with the man who had the goat. Then he went a long way, till he met a man who had a sheep. He changed with him, for he thought it was always better to have a sheep than a goat. When he had got a bit further, he met a man with a goose, and so he changed the sheep for the goose. And when he had gone a long, long way, he met a man with a cock. He changed the goose with him, for he thought this wise: it is surely better to have a cock than a goose. He walked on till late in the day, when he began to feel hungry, so he sold the cock for 6 pence, and bought some food for himself, for it is always better to keep body and soul together than to have a cock, thought Gudbrand. He then set off again homeward till he came to his neighbor's farm, and there he went in. "How did you get on in town?" asked the people. "Oh, only so-and-so," said the man. "I can't boast of my luck, nor can I grumble at it either." And then he told them how it had gone with him from first to last. "Well, you'll have a fine reception when you get home to your wife," said the man. "Heaven help you. I should not like to be in your place." "I think I might have fared much worse," said Gudbrand. "But whether I have fared well or ill, I have such a kind wife that she never says anything, no matter what I do." "Aye, so you say, but you won't get me to believe it," said the neighbor. "Shall we have a wager on it?" said Gudbrand. "I have $100 in my chest at home. Will you lay the same?" So they made the wager, and Gudbrand remained there till the evening, when it began to get dark, and then they went together to the farm. The neighbor was told to remain outside the door and listen while Gudbrand went in to his wife. "Good evening," said Gudbrand when he came in. "Good evening," said the wife. "Heaven be praised, you are back again." "Yes, here I am," said the man, and then the wife asked him how he had got on in town. "Oh, so," answered Gudbrand. "Not much to brag of. When I came to town, no one would buy the cow, so I changed it for a horse." "Oh, I'm so glad of that," said the woman. "We are pretty well off, and we ought to drive to church like other people. And when we can afford to keep a horse, I don't see why we should not have one. Run out, children, and put the horse in the stable." "Well, I haven't got the horse after all," said Gudbrand. "For when I had got a bit on the way, I changed it for a pig." "Dear me," cried the woman, "that's the very thing I should have done myself. I'm so glad of that, for now we can have some bacon in the house, and something to offer people when they come to see us. What do we want with a horse? People would only say we had become so grand that we could no longer walk to church. Run out, children, and let the pig in." "But I haven't got the pig either," said Gudbrand, "for when I had got a bit further on the road, I changed it into a milch goat." "Dear, dear, how well you manage everything," cried the wife. "When I really come to think of it, what do I want with the pig? People would only say, over yonder they eat up everything they have. No, now I have a goat, I can have both milk and cheese, and keep the goat into the bargain. Let in the goat, children." "But I haven't got the goat either," said Gudbrand. "When I got a bit on the way, I changed the goat and got a fine sheep for it." "Well," shouted the woman, "you do everything just as I should wish it, just as if I had been there myself. What do we want with a goat? I should have to climb uphill and down dale to get it home at night. No, when I have a sheep, I can have wool and clothes in the house and food as well. Run out, children, and let in the sheep." "But I haven't got the sheep any longer," said Gudbrand, "for when I had got a bit on the way, I changed it for a goose." "Well, thank you for that," said the woman, "and many thanks too. What do I want with a sheep? I can neither wheel nor spindle, and I do not care either to toil and drudge making clothes. We can buy clothes now as before. Now I can have goose fat, which I have so long been wishing for, and some feathers to stuff that little pillow of mine. Run, children, and let in the goose." "Well, I haven't got the goose either," said Gudbrand. "When I had got a bit further on the way, I changed it for a cock." "Well, I don't know how you can think of it all," cried the woman. "It's just as if I had done it all myself. A cock. Why, it's just the same as if you'd bought an 8-day clock, for every morning the clock will crow at 4, so we can be up in good time. What do we want with a goose? I can't make goose fat, and I can easily fill my pillow with some soft grass. Run, children, and let in the cock." "But I haven't got a cock either," said Gudbrand, "for when I had got a bit further, I became so terribly hungry that I had to sell the cock for 6 pence and get some food to keep my body and soul together." "Heaven be praised you did that," cried the woman. "Whatever you do, you always do the very thing I could have wished. Besides, what did we want with the cock? We are our own masters and can lie as long as we like in the mornings. Heaven be praised. As long as I have got you back again, who manage everything so well, I shall neither want cock nor goose, nor pig, nor cows. Gudbrand then opened the door. "Have I won the $100 now?" he asked, and the neighbor was obliged to confess that he had. Farmer Weatherbeard. There were once upon a time a man and a woman who had an only son, and he was called Hans. The woman thought that he ought to go out and look for work, and told her husband to go with him. "You must find him such a good place that he can become master of all masters," she said, and so she put some food and a roll of tobacco in a bag for them. Well, they went to many masters, but all replied that they might make the lad as clever as they were themselves, but they could not make him cleverer. When the man came home to his wife with his answer, she said, "Well, I don't care what you do with him, but this I tell you, that you will have to make him master over all masters." So she put some food and a roll of tobacco in a bag, and the man and the son had to set out again. When they had gone a bit on the way, they came out upon the ice, where they met a man who was driving a black horse. "Where are you going?" said he. "I'm going to get my son apprenticed to someone who can teach him well, for my wife comes of such good people that she wants him to become master of all masters." "That's lucky," said the man who was driving. "I am the very man for that, and I am just looking for such an apprentice. Get up behind," he said to the boy, and off they went through the air. "Wait a bit," shouted the lad's father. "I ought to know what's your name and where you live," said he. "Oh, I'm at home both north and south and east and west, and I am called Farmer Weatherbeard," said the master. "In a year you can come back again, and I will tell you if he's good for anything." And off they went and were lost to sight. When the year was out, the man came to hear about his son. "You can't finish him in a year, you know," said the master. "As yet he has only found his legs, so to speak." They then agreed that Farmer Weatherbeard should keep him another year and teach him everything, and then the man was to come back for him. When the year was over, they met again at the same place. "Have you finished with him now?" asked the father. "Yes, he's my master now, but you will never see him again," said Farmer Weatherbeard. And before the man knew what had become of them, they were gone, both the farmer and the lad. When the man came home, the woman asked if the son was not with him, or what had become of him. "Oh, goodness knows what became of him," said the man. "He went off through the air." And so he told her what had happened. When the woman heard that her husband did not know where her son was, she sent him off again. "You must find the lad, even if you have to go to Old Nick for him," said she, and gave him a bag of food and a roll of tobacco. When he had got a bit on the way, he came to a large forest, and it took him the whole of the day to get through it. And as it grew dark, he saw a bright light and went toward it. After a long while, he came to a little cottage under a cliff, and outside it a woman was standing, drawing water from the well with her nose. It was so long. "Good evening, mother." "Good evening to you," said the woman. "No one has called me mother for 100 years. "Can I get lodgings here tonight?" said the man. "No," said the woman. But then the man brought out the roll of tobacco, dried a little of it, and made some snuff, which he gave the woman. She was so glad that she began to dance, and then she said that he might stop the night. All at once he asked after Farmer Weatherbeard. She knew nothing about him, she said, but she ruled over all 4-footed animals, and perhaps some of them might know something about him. She then called them together with a whistle and questioned them, but there was not one who knew anything about Farmer Weatherbeard. "Well, we are 3 sisters," said the woman. "Perhaps one of the other 2 knows where he is. I'll lend you my carriage so that you can get there tonight, but it is 300 miles to the nearest of them." The man set out and got there in the evening. When he arrived, there also was a woman standing drawing water from the well with her nose. "Good evening, mother," said the man. "Good evening to you," said the woman. "No one has called me mother for 100 years," said she. "Can I get lodgings here tonight?" said the man. "No," said the woman. But then the man brought out the roll of tobacco, dried a little of it, and made some snuff, which he gave the woman on the back of her hand. She was so pleased at this that she began to dance, and then she said he might stop there the night. All at once he asked about Farmer Weatherbeard. She did not know anything about him, but she ruled over all the fishes, she said, and perhaps some of them might know something about him. She then called them together with a whistle she had and questioned them all, but there was not one who knew anything about Farmer Weatherbeard. "Well, I have another sister. Perhaps she may know something about him. She lives 600 miles from here, but you can have my carriage and get there before night sets in." The man set out and got there in the evening and found a woman raking the fire with her nose. It was so long. "Good evening, mother." "Good evening to you," said the woman. "No one has called me mother for 100 years. "Can I get lodgings here tonight?" said the man. "No," said the woman. But then the man brought out the tobacco roll again and began to make some snuff. He gave the woman so much that it covered the whole of the back of her hand. She was so pleased at this that she began to dance, and then she said he might stop the night. All at once he asked about Farmer Weatherbeard. She did not know anything about him, she said, but she ruled over all the birds and called them all together with her whistle. When she had questioned them all, she missed the eagle, but in a little while he came, and when she asked him, he said he had come straight from Father Weatherbeard. The woman then told him that he must show the man the way there. But first the eagle wanted something to eat, and next he wanted to rest till the following day, for he was so tired after the long way he had come that he could scarcely rise from the ground. When the eagle had finished his meal and taken a rest, the woman plucked a feather from his tail and put the man in its place, and away flew the eagle with him, but they did not get to Farmer Weatherbeard before midnight. When they arrived there, the eagle said, "There are bones and carcasses lying about outside the door, but you must not mind them. All the people in the house sleep so soundly that they are hard to wake. You must go straight to the table drawer and take 3 bits of bread out of it, and if you hear someone snoring, you must pull 3 feathers out of his head. That won't wake him up." The man did as he was told, and when he had got the bits of bread, he pulled out first 1 feather. "Oh!" cried Farmer Weatherbeard. Then the man pulled out 1 more, and Farmer Weatherbeard shouted, "Oh!" again. But when he pulled out the 3rd one, Farmer Weatherbeard shrieked so loudly that the man thought both the walls and the roof would have burst asunder. But the farmer went on sleeping just the same. The eagle then told the man what he was to do next. So he went to the door of the cowhouse, and there he stumbled against a big stone, which he took with him, and under the stone lay 3 chips of wood, which he also took with him. He then knocked at the door of the cowhouse, and it opened at once. He dropped the 3 bits of bread, and a hare came running out and ate them. He then caught the hare and took it with him. The eagle asked him to pluck 3 feathers out of his tail and place the hare, the stone, the chips of wood, and himself instead, and he would then fly home with them. When the eagle had flown a long, long way, he settled down on a stone. "Do you see anything?" said he. "Yes, I see a flock of crows flying toward us," said the man. "We had better get on a bit then," said the eagle, and on he flew. In a while he asked again, "Do you see anything now?" "Yes, the crows are close upon us again," said the man. "Drop the 3 feathers you plucked from his head," said the eagle. The man did so, and the moment he dropped them, the feathers became a flock of ravens, which chased the crows home again. The eagle then flew far away with the man. At last it settled down on a stone to rest. "Do you see anything?" he said. "I'm not sure," said the man, "but I think I see something coming far away." "We had better get on a bit then," said the eagle. "Do you see anything now?" he said in a while. "Yes, now he is close upon us," said the man. "You must drop the chips which you took from under the stone near the cowhouse door," said the eagle. The man did so, and the same moment he dropped them, there grew up a great thick forest, so Farmer Weatherbeard had to go home for axes to cut his way through. The eagle then flew on again a long way, till he became tired and settled down in a fir tree. "Do you see anything?" said he. "Well, I'm not sure about it," said the man, "but I think I catch a glimpse of something far away." "We had better get on a bit then," said the eagle, and so he flew on again. "Do you see anything now?" he said in a while. "Yes, now he is close upon us." "You must drop the stone you took from the cowhouse door," said the eagle. The man did so, and it became a big, lofty mountain, which Farmer Weatherbeard had to break his way through. But when he had got halfway through the mountain, he broke one of his legs, so that he had to go home and get it healed. In the meantime, the eagle flew home with the man and the hare, and when they got there, the man went to the churchyard and put some consecrated soil on the hare, and it changed into Hans, his own son. When the time came round for the fair, the lad turned himself into a cream-colored horse and asked his father to take him with him to the fair. "If someone comes up to you and wants to buy me, you must say you want $100 for me. But you must not forget to take off the halter, otherwise I shall never be able to get away from Farmer Weatherbeard, for it is he who will come and want to buy me," said the lad. And so it turned out. A horse dealer came up and wanted to buy the horse, and the man got his $100 for it. But when the bargain was made and Hans's father had got the money, the horse dealer wanted to keep the halter also. "No, there was nothing about that in our agreement," said the man. "You cannot have the halter, for I have more horses to bring to town." So they each went his way, but they had not got far before Hans resumed his own shape, and when the man came home he found the son sitting by the stove. The second day he turned himself into a brown horse and told his father to take him with him to the fair. "If someone comes up to you and wants to buy me, you must say you want $200 for me, for he will pay you that and give you a drink besides. But whatever you drink or whatever you do, you must not forget to take the halter off me, else you will not see me again," said Hans. It turned out just as before. The man got $200 for the horse and a drink into the bargain. And when they parted, it was as much as the man could do to remember to take off the halter. But they had not got far on the road before the lad resumed his own shape, and when the man came home, Hans was already sitting by the stove. The third day, the same thing happened again. The lad turned himself into a big black horse and told his father that someone would come up to him and offer him $300 and treat him freely to drink. But whatever he did, or however much he drank, he must not forget to take off the halter. otherwise he would never get away from Farmer Weatherbeard in his life. No, he would not forget that, said the man. When he came to the fair, he got the $300. But Farmer Weatherbeard treated him to so much drink that he forgot to take off the halter, and Farmer Weatherbeard set off with the horse. When he had got a bit on the way, he went into a place to get some more drink, and so he put a barrel of red-hot nails under the horse's nose and a trough of oats under his tail, hung the halter across a hurdle, and went in to the innkeeper. The horse stood there, stamping and kicking and snorting and scenting the air. A girl then came by who took pity on him. Poor creature, what sort of master have you got who can treat you in this way? Said she, and pushed the halter off the hurdle so that the horse could turn round and eat the oats. I am his master, shouted Farmer Weatherbeard, who came rushing out through the door. But the horse had already shaken off the halter and thrown himself into the horse pond, where he changed himself into a little fish. Farmer Weatherbeard rushed after him and changed himself into a big pike. Hans then turned himself into a pigeon, and Farmer Weatherbeard changed into a hawk and set off after the pigeon. At that moment, a princess was standing at a window in the palace and watched this struggle. If you knew as much as I do, you would come in through the window to me, said the princess to the pigeon. The pigeon flew in through the window and then changed into Hans, who told her what had happened. Change yourself into a gold ring and put yourself on my finger, said she. No, that is no use, said Hans, for Farmer Weatherbeard will then make the king ill, and there is no one who can make him well till Farmer Weatherbeard comes to cure him, and he will ask for the gold ring as payment. I will say it is my mother's, and that I will not part with it for anything, said the princess. So Hans changed himself into a gold ring and placed himself on the princess's finger, and there Farmer Weatherbeard could not get hold of him. But it happened just as the lad had said. The king became ill, and there was no doctor who could cure him till Farmer Weatherbeard came, and he wanted the ring on the princess's finger for his fee. The king then sent to the princess for the ring, but she would not part with it, she said, for it had been left her by her mother. When the king heard this, he became angry and said he would have the ring, no matter who had left it to her. Well, it is no use getting angry, said the princess, for I cannot get it off my finger. If you want the ring, you must take the finger as well. I will help you, and I shall soon get the ring off, said Farmer Weatherbeard. No, thank you. I will try myself, said the princess, and went to the hearth and put some ashes on it. The ring then slipped off and was lost in the ashes. Farmer Weatherbeard then turned himself into a cock, which scratched and rooted about in the hearth after the ring, so that the ashes flew about their ears. But Hans changed into a fox and bit the cock's head off, and if the evil one was in Farmer Weatherbeard, it was now all over with him.